Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast. It's Ben from Simplified Fitness Business, and today we're looking at possibly the hardest and best topic ever, how to hire and fire someone. It's the stuff that we all need to do, but it's absolutely terrifying for most of us, and if you've ever done it before, you've probably messed it up just like I have 100 times. So if you're anyone who owns a business and you've got a team member, whether they're contractors, staffs, or casuals, we're going to look at some ways to make this a lot simpler for you and take a lot of the heartache right out of the process. Hi guys, welcome back. Ben from Simplified Fitness Business, and look, just hanging out for the afternoon. It's family day today, so we've got the son's favorite shirt on, ready to rock. If you're not spending time on yourself, make sure you get some of that set up this week. Today, we're going to be looking at hiring and firing. Now, look, if you've got a business, you've got to do it. We all want to hire people, we want to expand the business and get people on, but what happens when you get the wrong people? More importantly, how do you make sure you don't get the wrong people in the first place? So today I'm going to be looking at some ways that we use to hire the right people the first time. And look, we don't always get it right, but we've cut down the mistakes by a lot. If you haven't got it yet, we've got a downloadable for some job ads that we use in the fitness industry. Also got some questions that we use in our interview process. And there's also a script for when you get to the point where unfortunately you've made the wrong choice, there's a script for how to fire someone. Look, it might not necessarily be the right way, but it's definitely a way that makes it a little easier for you. And look, we minimize the stress as much as possible. I've done this far too many times to count. And look, at the end of the day, it always ends up with the same way. I feel really bad because I've had to fire someone. We've been through this recently where no matter how many times you've done this, it's the same sick feeling that if you've ever broken up with someone before, guy, girl, pet, whatever, it always feels the same. It's that sickening feeling in your stomach, and every aspect of your being. I mean, if you're in the fitness industry, you got into this to help people. So when you're at the point where you need to fire someone because they're not the right match for your business, the only thing that sits in the back of your head is they're damaging my business. However, I don't want to take away and damage this person by taking away their ability to support themselves and their family. It's a really hard thing to do. So I've got a couple of ways that are going to help make it a little bit easier for you. But first of all, we're going to look at the hiring process, because realistically, if your hiring process is much better, then you're not going through that firing process as often. And it's really difficult to fire someone, especially if they're doing a really good job, but they're just not a good fit. So the key here is making sure we hire the right people in the first place. As an old saying, hire slow, fire fast. Not always easy. It's not always easy to do, and it's easier said than done sometimes, especially in the fitness industry. Like most of us, you've been told, you've got to get rid of that person, or you've got to hire some people, but it's really hard to justify when the majority of your revenue comes from billable hours. If your staff aren't performing, they're not going to support, revenue is not going to support hiring a new person. And if you lose a person, you're so worried about losing all the revenue associated with that person. Cool? So, I mean, the hiring process, I've been through this so many times, and it always ended the same way for me. I'd go through processes that I'd downloaded off the internet, and I'd read with people, and we go through the classic stuff, ask them the questions, those difficult questions. Have you ever problem solved before? And what would you do in a difficult situation? Have you ever been in a situation where you've been confronted by someone? And then there are the typical interview questions that you read in Top 10 Inc. magazine, stuff like that. And look, realistically, we're not hiring corporate people. We're hiring humans to do human jobs with the other human people. So our process needs to be a far more human process. And this is a trick I learned from one of my previous coaches, was to split the interview process into two. So we do 2 interviews, not just one. And it sounds like double the work, but what I found was by having this simpler interview process at the start, I could bang a heap of those out in a day, but cut down the amount of times I spent doing face-to-face interviews. So my first interview was always on the phone. They were like 15 minutes max. The longer interviews face-to-face were a bit longer, but I did far less of them, and I was only interviewing the right people. Of course, it made the decision a little bit harder, but I was only interviewing people that were definitely right for the job, or at least potentially right for the job. And I wasn't wasting my time with the tire kickers and the people that are just looking for jobs. And if you're out there at the moment dealing with job seeker and job keeper, then there's a lot of people out there who are simply applying for jobs just to tick a box on a form. And you want to make sure that you're not spending your time with those people. So, I mean, it all starts with how we do our ads. And if you've got one of our ads, feel free to grab one of the downloads and use it. Make sure you change the name. Don't advertise for my business. Like, cool, but it's not going to work. Not going to help you. We want to put a good ad out there. And it all starts with what you're looking for. So, I mean, my keys for hiring is you've got to be hiring for the role you need. You don't just need a PT. What particular roles are they going to do? Are you working considerably in customer service where it's all face-to-face and a big community-based sort of feeling to your company. If it is, then you want to make sure you're hiring that person who's bubbly and friendly and loves people. Not all PTs love people, believe it or not. We're not all good with people. But if you've got more of a production line system where you're doing a lot of challenges and a lot of high volume people coming through, then you probably don't need as many of those skill sets, and organization is going to be way more important. Second, you want to hire on the culture. So who are you? Like, as a person, what sort of person do you want to hang out with at work? Who is going to make, what type of clients and trainers are going to make your life easier? Like, easy way to look at this, if you don't have any other staff, look at your clients. Which of them do you really get along with and do you find easy to work with? You're looking for those characteristics in your new staff members, because if you get along with that client, then you're going to get along with a staff member that's just like that client. And if your staff member is just like that client, they're also going to get along with that client. So that's going to make it really easy for you. And number two, make them work for it. So here we go. Some really, really simple things. First of all, put the ads up as many times as you can. There's a couple of good resources out there. You've always got Seek and places like that. But there's a company in Australia called Healthy People, and they specialize in jobs for just fitness people. So it's physios and rehab specialists, personal trainers, gym instructors, all that sort of stuff. Depending on where you are, they're much, much better in the bigger cities, but they do have some regional applicants as well. Well worth the time. It's about half the cost of Seek, and for the same cost as Seek, you can actually cover them and Seek as well. So really, there's no downside to doing it. But you want to put it up there, Instagram, Facebook. Where is your audience? So if your audience and your clients are all on Facebook, then you want to be advertising on Facebook. Now, your trainers need to come from the same place as your clients, or at least have similar interests if they're going to get along with your clients. Like, for instance, if your trainers are all coming from Instagram, they're probably a younger demographic, but your clients are all coming from Facebook, they're probably a bit older. So you're going to get a lot of younger clients, a lot of younger trainers, but a lot of older clients, and they're not always going to be the best mess. It's not always going to be the best mix of people. Sometimes it ends up as a bit of a mess, yeah? Look at where you're pulling your trainers from, make them work for it. So make them reply to the ad, but give them specific instructions. A long ad is hard to read, and those people looking for a quick job are not going to read it. Make sure you put all the instructions that you need them to do. So whether it's message me with X, Y, and Z, make them do some specific things. Because if they're not willing to do specific things to even apply for the job, there is no chance they're going to do specific things when they're told to at work. Make sense? Cool. So my personal favorites is I like to send a resume that's specifically written for my company. So don't send me a generic recipe, or you might say a resume with only specific things to the job you're applying for. You want to include a job description. So maybe not a full job description, but some dot points. What's the top 5 to 10 things that this person is going to be doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? What are the key roles that you want them to do? What are their special skills that they need? Like, do they have to be exceptionally good at programming for strength training and Olympic lifting? Do they have to be exceptionally good dealing with clients who have emotional problems? Do they need to have exceptional good temperament to work with kids? So you've got to add some specific points there that are going to attract that person. Number two, tell them what they get. So if you've ever tried to negotiate with a 4-year-old before, it's a bit of a challenge, really. They're not going to do it unless there's something in for them. And you think about it this way, if you've ever had troubles hiring staff before, the biggest problem that we hear is they just won't do as they're told. And I always ask, well, why should they? What's in it for them? Why should someone who doesn't own your business and doesn't benefit from your business succeeding do as you say? And of course, the easy answer is, will they get a paycheck? But what else do they get? What are the other benefits? So, do they get free access to the gym? Do they get personal development? Do they get anything in-house? Like, for instance, one of the things that we give our clients is massage. We've got massage in-house. All of our staff members get monthly massage included. Our personal development is all covered for them. We have courses online that we've set up for them so they can do their own personal development in whatever area they want. Their first aid and CPR is all covered by us. We get someone in once a year to do all the first aid and CPR certificates. So little things like that are attractive because no one else is telling them about this. Everyone else is talking about wages. And to be perfectly honest, however you're hiring your trainers, you're probably on par with everyone else. Let's be honest, none of us are that successful that we can pay us $1 million to do a job. So you've got to really sell the benefits. Every other gym has got the same offer you have. What makes you different to them? Just like when you do marketing to your clients, what makes you attractive to the right client? You don't want any trainer, you want the right trainer. So what makes you so much more attractive to the right person than just that? So spend a bit of time on that. What is their job description? Make it interesting. Train clients, run classes, everyone does that. What are the cool things they get to do? What are the interesting things they get to do? Are there adventure sessions where they go out and do stuff for their bushwalks? Are there hikes? Do you take people on, kayaking and stuff like that? What are the cool things they get to do? And then what are the cool things they get as part of their job that they wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else? Cool. That's a really big attraction point to the right person. Anyone else is just looking for a bigger paycheck, but the right people are looking for the right working conditions because they want to be part of the right team. Yeah. And then ask them to apply, not by commenting below, every monkey comments below. The amount of times I've seen a young fella go, oh, this looks like a good job, maybe I'll do it. Like on the comments for the actual job itself that I'm reading. And it's like obviously instant, I'm not even going to interview that person. But you want to put specific instructions. So get them to message you with some questions. You might have some simple interview questions you want to ask. If you're really community-based, you might ask them to send you a message and let them know why you'd be right for the job. Please answer the following 2 or 3 questions in your application. Something simple like that is going to test the people who will actually read instructions and follow your instructions on the first go, yeah? That's going to get your applicants cut right down to minimal. However, you're only going to be looking at the people who could be bothered doing as they were told. And they're the people you want, yeah? Number 2, second interview is going to be a culture interview is what I call it. I like to do it on Zoom because we do a lot of stuff on Zoom. Think about it this way. If you're going to do 5 a.m. starts, you want to make sure that person can do a 5 a.m. start. If you're doing a lot of online training and Zoom training, you definitely want to be interviewing them on Zoom. That's the simplest way to test whether or not they can use the technology in the first place. The last thing we'll do is interview someone face-to-face for an online job and find out they don't have a computer. You'd be surprised who will apply for these jobs. So get them to do their first interview over Zoom. It's really simple. Send them a link. If you don't know how to use it, you probably should learn. But send them a link, make them interview over Zoom, and you can just have a bit of a chat, get to know them. Can they hold a conversation with you? Because if they can't hold a conversation with you, the person they're trying to impress to get a job, they probably won't be able to do it with their clients either. Yeah? Cool. And then if you find that you get a good gut feeling from that, that's the next stage to move to that final face-to-face interview, which is pretty standard. It's things like logistical interview is what we call them, but it's, you want to ask them more specific things about their experience, their job. And that's, if they're not a good cultural fit for your company, they don't believe in the things that you believe, then they're definitely not going to be a good fit for your team. No matter how good they are at their job, they're just not going to be a good fit. If you're not sure about that, we did a cultural matrix. We've got it up on the Facebook page. You can find that in the downloadables anytime. Just basically, it tests the culture versus skill fit for any staff member in a team. Once you get to your logistical interviews, you go in there. Those normally go for anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. Keep them short and sweet. Have some preset questions. Make them hard. Make them think. Don't ask easy questions. Make questions that they have to think about, because if they have to think, they're going to give you real answers. If they're just going to blurt out answers and try and make a good impression, then it's not going to be very helpful for you. You want to see who they really are. Can they think on the spot? Ask them difficult questions like, what do you believe? If you're a community-based person or a community-based gym, what do they believe about community? Want to really get results? How would you break down this sort of goal set for a client? And where would you start with this? If you're a nutrition-based place, you want to ask them some questions about nutrition. But those questions at that point should now really revolve around the role that you want to do. So I hope that makes sense. Like for hiring, is you want to hire for the role you need. You want to know the specific skill sets that person needs. And at all stages through the interview process, you want to be touching on those, making sure that they're ticking boxes. The culture is the big one. But we've all worked with someone who has a really good ability to do their job, but they are just absolutely horrible to work with because they're arrogant or they think they're awesome or they don't want to be there. The culture is everything. One bad person will spoil everything. That one negative person in your company becomes the cancer of your company. So you want to try and do everything you can to get to know this person in the interview process, because once you hire them, it's much harder to get rid of them. It's just easier to say no at the interview process. Cool. And as I said, make them work for it. Ask hard questions, put them on the spot. And there's no problems with doing that. You'll feel a bit weird about it, but if they can't handle your questions on the spot, what are they going to do when your clients put them on the spot? And if you've got clients like mine, they are absolutely going to test them 100% of the time. Every single time they're going to be tested. So put them on the spot, make them sweat a little bit, make sure they can handle the heat. Because as you know, this job is all about helping people. Running a fitness business is not about just ticking boxes. It's about helping people and making changes, and it's hard work. So if your staff members can't do the hard work to even apply for the job, they damn sure can't do the hard work to keep the job. Make sense? So hope that helps out, guys, with the hiring. As I said, make it a decent length interview, a sort of application for the process. Make them read it, make them answer questions specifically on their application. Do a culture interview. Get to know them first as a person, and do you get a gut feeling that you actually like them and they'll get along with your clients and people? And lastly, thirdly, in that face-to-face interview, make sure that you're really assessing their ability to do the job. Ask them the hard questions, put them on the spot. Yeah? Cool. All right, so most of the time when you do this really well, it all goes well and you hire the right person, they go through. But even when you get it 100% right, they're still not always the best fit for your company. Sometimes they just don't work out. Sometimes they don't have the right availability, which you should have got in the interview process, but you don't always get that. Sometimes availabilities change. Sometimes people just lie in interviews. Some people are really, really good. Think of it this way. If you're in sales in your fitness area, and if you're a sole business owner, you probably are, then you're probably pretty good at selling things. most of all, as a personal trainer, we sell ourselves. That's the product. So I know that when I go through an interview process, I can definitely sell myself. So if I want a job, I'm going to say the things I need to say to get the job. And if the interviewer is not better than me at sales, I'm probably going to get the job based on being able to sell myself. So if you're up against someone who's fairly good with people, or maybe he's got some sales background experience, or maybe he's just really good at interviewing because they've done 100 of them, then there's a good chance they're going to be pretty good at selling themselves. So you don't always get it right. All right. So what do you do then? Well, hiring people is always hard. I firmly believe that you can train skill sets. So if you get someone who is a really good culture fit for the team, number one, they've got a hugely strong work ethic, but maybe they don't have the skill set, then you can train those things. And it may take a little bit of time, but there is no substitute for someone who is a really good fit for your team who can be trained up over time. You'll be surprised how much your clients will be patient with your trainers if they're a really good person. They've got good passion and they care about their clients. But if they're simply there for the job, that will shine through like nothing else, and your clients will see that. And they won't have any patience for them, and neither will you. If you're finding yourself getting really frustrated with people, especially your team members, then you might find that maybe they're not the best fit for the team. Look, like most of us, we're emotional about our business. We're super passionate about it. And it's really hard to reconcile the fact that all of our staff simply don't care about our business as much as we do. And I went through this for years and years and years, dealing with this. Every time I'd hire someone, I was like, why can't they just do their job? How is it so hard just to remember the things you were told to do and do the things you were told to do? It's a PT. It's not a hard job. Any monkey can do this job. Why can't you guys just show up and do the damn job? I had this conversation 1,000 times, and like you have too. And you know yourself, like 90% of the job is psychological. It's helping people to make changes. 10% of the job is being a PT. It's not hard to be a PT, but it's hard to care about clients. But some people just don't, and that's okay. So, I mean, look at your business and the job role you hired for. Did you hire specifically for a job role that this person clearly has no skill sets for? And can those skill sets be trained? As a general rule, logistical stuff and knowledge can be trained, but people skills, a little harder to train. Work ethic, almost impossible to train. Unless you're dealing with a 5-year-old, like it's really difficult. Once they get to about 18, 20, it's really difficult to fix a work ethic if they don't have one. That's a product of their upbringing. So how do you fix it? And when do you fire them? So like any work situation sort of has about a 3-month probation period. And that should be in your contracts. If you don't have that in your contracts, definitely get that fixed up. You've got to take it a bit as a grain of salt, yeah? So if you've got a company with 5 or 6 employees or a decent amount of revenue, you've probably got a bit of buffer there to manage to give someone a chance for 2 to 3 months. But if you're just starting out and you're a one show sort of band, then you might not have that option there. So, I mean, you can come and hire them as casuals first, which a lot of people do, and then let them earn their right to be full-time or part-time. If they're contractors, well, doesn't really matter anyway. There's no sort of like notice period needed to be given. But if you're employing people full-time, then there's a bit of a notice period that's required by law, and you really got to know those laws. So a couple of quick things for you guys. If you're under Australian business law and you're under 17 employees, or I think $2 billion in revenue for the year, you're covered by the small business rights, and that's under the NES or the National Employment Standards. Definitely get on the Fair Work, and you should definitely be reading up on your rights if you haven't already done so. Read them in depth. Don't gloss over them, especially the NES and especially around the dismissal laws for fair business for small and medium businesses, and where you sit as far as what you're ranked as small or medium. There's different laws there. If you know those, it's much easier to make some decisions. But you've got to base it on a revenue base to start with. If you don't have the money to pay this person and they're not bringing in the revenue, it's really hard to justify keep employing them. So the firing process, well, I like to go through an assessment process first. Number one, culture fit. Do I like them? First of all, yes or no. Do I find them difficult to work with? Have I asked them to do several things? And how many times have you asked someone to do something and they haven't done it? So that's a bit more an infliction on their work ethic. Ask the rest of your team if you have a team. Get some feedback on them. How have you gone working with such and such? Have you found this person to be easy to work with and reliable, or do you have to continue to follow them up? You'll get that feedback pretty quickly if you haven't already got it just from observing your team. At that point there, you've sort of made a decision that you need to assess them for suitability for the role. So at this point there, I would start giving them some specific things to do and asking them to do them by a certain date, and you want to track that and just make sure that it's not just you. It's not just a gut feeling, because you don't have to like everyone you hire. And you shouldn't fire everyone you don't like, because think of it this way: if I had to spend time by myself in a room with myself, another version of myself, I'd go nuts. I couldn't do it. Wouldn't like that. So you're not always hiring people that are you or like you, and you know that. So when you go to fire people, it's often because you don't like them initially. But you want to then take some time to just logistically look at, are they actually doing the things they're told to do, and to what standard? Are your clients impressed by their service? Ask your clients just straight up. How would you rate such and such's efforts on this and this and this? Some key roles that they're supposed to be doing. When clients you'll notice that downturn in enthusiasm from your clients, ask them, what's going on, man? What's changed? And you might find that new staff member is just not cutting it there as well. So once you've got your reasons for firing someone, so something to know here is that you want to know your rights and theirs. They've got rights as well. And while it's not always fair for us, we still need to know them when we're working out how to remove someone from the company once we've made the decision. You want to assess with your head, how you fit, with your head and your heart, how you feel about firing this person. Normally that's a guts feeling. That's pretty easy to make. But you definitely want to have some logical reasons for doing it. If you just fire someone because you don't like them, then you're going to fire everyone. Honestly, everyone pisses you off at some point. You're a fitness business owner working with PTs. Sometimes it does feel like running a daycare. So at some point, they're all going to piss you off. At that point, you have to make some logical choices and go, okay, well, I definitely think this person's a poor fit for the team, but are they doing their job, or could they be upskilled? Do they need some more training, or are they just not listening to me and they're not working with me? There's no give and take. So when you get into the point where you want to fire them, if it's inside your probation period, number one, you can just dismiss them, not continue the probation period. Typically a week notice is about all you're going to have to give. I like to do it with a week's notice just to avoid any conflicts. But if you do it on the day, you want to have some really, really good reasons. Under fair trading, there are some good solid reasons for firing someone on the spot, but you have to be pretty black and white about them, and they have to be real reasons, not stuff you've just made up to tick the boxes. Yeah, book a meeting with them, sit down. End of probation is really easy. Otherwise, just a review management profile is good too. If you book a meeting on their calendar saying, "Hey, we want to talk about your continued employment," you're probably going to come with some reservations there, and you're probably going to set yourself up for a bit of a confrontation. They might even just call it sick. All right. So when you sit down in the meeting, you want to rehearse this a dozen times. Why are you firing them? What are the reasons you're justifying this with, and how are you moving forward from this point? You need to be able to clearly define what they will receive on exit. So will they receive any extra pays or remuneration, paid out of annual leave, and when will they be finishing up? i.e. when is their last day? If you've got someone that you're removing because they're a bit of a cancer to the business, it's not likely they're going to come out of this meeting feeling really good about themselves. So that's a good chance to just finish them up on the day. So you might want to consider which day you're firing them on to make sure that you're not going to disadvantage yourself too much. Yeah? All right. So sit them down in the meeting. I've got a script. I'm going to put that in the downloadables for you guys. So feel free to use this and work through this as you want. You want to get to the point. So there's no point beating around the bush. And if you've ever broken up with someone, it's just the same. You're going to feel this gut turning in your guts. It's going to feel terrible. It always does for me. I've done this dozens and dozens of times. And even to this day, after 12 years, I still feel the gut churning, and it still makes me sick to my stomach. But I go in knowing that this is the best decision for my company. It's the best decision for my team. And I've got to make sure I do this clean and right. So I go in rehearsed. I know what I want to say. Typically, if it's end of probation or if it's dismissal, say, all right, so based on current performance, we reviewed and we've decided at this point that we're no longer going to continue your employment or probation. We're going to finish you up effectively of such and such a date. You would then tell them if there's any okay, well, you'll be paid out until this day, and any annual leave, of course, will be paid out. And what we require from you is to return any goods such and such and such, return any keys, and then move on from there. You ask them, does that make sense? And they're going to understand, and you're going to get one of two reactions. You're going to get, oh, okay, and they're going to be that meek and they kind of knew it was coming maybe, or they just are a little bit in shock, and that's okay. Give them time to breathe. The other option you're going to get is the rant and the scream and the yell and the argue, and at that point, you're absolutely certain you want to fire them. Let them blow themselves out. This is really important. Let them vent. Nobody gets fired and is happy about it. Okay, some people do, but very rarely is anyone ever happy about being fired. So let them have their say. Let them blow themselves out. Just don't agree with them. Don't go along with them. Just understand. That makes perfect sense. Yes. And when they finish, say, cool. All right. So moving on, and you get back into your script that you were saying. Cool. So you just let them vent whenever they need to vent. Don't buy into it. The worst thing you could ever do is agree with them. You definitely don't want to agree with them. You don't want to try and understand them. But you just want to get straight to the point. At that point, you also need to call the meeting too. So you'll need to tell them when to leave, basically. Otherwise, they're going to sit there and not know what to do. It's had a bit of a shocking blow. So at the end of the meeting, does that make sense? Okay, so we'll finish you up. All right, so what I need from here is, look, obviously finishing up today, don't need you to stay for the rest of the day because they're only going to start a fight or argue or bitch about you for the rest of the day anyway. So have them get their stuff, and you want to hang out, escort them from the building, grab their key off them before they leave. If they've got a key, get that. Super important. And then out the door they go, and you're done. Now, it's not that easy. And the first time you do it, the first time I did it, I didn't do it. I chickened out. The person came back at me a reason why it was unfair, and I sympathized with them and I talked to them, and I found it was really difficult to then carry on with the conversation. Once I changed direction, it was impossible for me to get back to the point where they were still fired. Of course, I just told them I was fired and then backtracked on my original version. So you can imagine how that went, and I lost all authority in that situation. So I had to then do it the super hard way. It was so difficult. It was the worst experience of my life, and it was all because I didn't do it right the first time. I didn't stick to my guns. They're going to have compassionate reasons, and you might be firing someone who's got kids, they've got a family support, and this is their sole job. And if you're at the point where you're already firing someone, you've already considered this. So there is no right answer here. You can't be right in this situation. All you can consider is that you've spent your entire life building your business. Are you willing to let that person continue to be a detriment and a cancer on your business, or do you need to cut that out and move on, cut your losses? At the end of the day, when you are firing someone, there is no right answer. There's no win-win situation here. Either way, it's lose-lose. You're losing a staff member, you're losing productivity, you're losing volume, you've lost money from training them, and they're losing the ability to support themselves, or at least part of their income. That's never going to feel good. It's never going to be a good situation to be in. But you just have to look at the bigger picture and go, am I making this decision for the right reasons? So if you've got logical reasons, and it's not just a heart and a gut feeling that you're firing them for, it's going to be a little easier for you to rationalize this later on. And definitely plan to have some time off after this, because at the end of the day, you're going to feel terrible after your first one. I still feel terrible after my 100th one. So it's always about just looking after yourself and making sure that you've got some debrief afterwards. If you're having a manager or someone sitting with you, that's all good. Well, you're going to have to debrief them afterwards as well and have a bit of a chat to them. How do they feel? No one's going to feel good after this. So it's, maybe just something to think about going in. But I hope that makes sense for firing people. So look, it's a hard situation, and no matter how you swing it, I don't think you can ever walk out of it. Like, it takes a really ordinary person to walk away from firing someone and feel good about themselves. Like, it's not something you should enjoy doing. It's not something that anyone wants to think about. But when I hired our practice manager, the first and only question I asked them is, do you feel that you can fire someone? And that was the only question I had to ask, because that's the hardest part of the entire job. Every other job is difficult and challenging, but having to sit face to face with someone and fire them is really, really difficult. Okay, so as I said, going into that, know your rights. Know your reasons, have them rehearsed, and rehearse your script. So know exactly what you need to say. Rehearse it 1,000 times. I typically don't go in on those days except for that meeting, and I'll rehearse it for an hour before I go in, just over and over again. What are the words I need to say? I still get it wrong, but at least I get close. Get to the point. Keep it nice and short, nice and sharp. That meeting does not need to go for any longer than 5-10 minutes. The only reason it would is if they're going to argue with you. And at that point, you've said what you need to say. What's done is done. You've just got to let them blow themselves out and move out of the meeting as quickly as possible. No good will come from dragging that meeting out. But let them vent, no matter how much they want to vent, and let it go. Just make sure the more they vent, the quicker you get them out of the building afterwards. Yeah. And I said, know your rights, know your laws, know what to say. So I said, we put a script in below. If you want to grab that, use it. Feel free to have it as much as you want. Like, I found it really, really helpful for myself. Even though I didn't say it this way all the time, the script is actually designed for performance managers. So when you're giving someone a written warning and something like that, but the termination process is just a much, much shorter version of it. So there's actually 2 in there as well. But I hope that's really helpful. In summary, like, hiring people is a long process. Don't be afraid to keep it a long process. Don't try and shortcut that. Make it long, make it difficult. Make your team members really, really work to get their job. Because if they're not willing to go through that effort, they're not going to do it for you on the day. And hiring and firing, like when you're firing someone, sometimes you've got to do it. In the fitness industry, it happens more often than we want it to. Make sure you know your rights. Make sure you know what to do, and just do it quick. Like a Band-Aid, rip it off, yeah? There's no good way to feel about it, so just get it done, move on. At least that way your business suffers less and the rest of your team suffer less. The longer you put it off, the longer your team suffers, the longer you suffer, the longer your business is going to suffer. So my advice there is just get in it, hit it, yeah? It's like a hard workout or a big run. Just get in and hit it, yeah? All right, guys, thanks so much for listening on. As I said, if you haven't done yet, hit like, hit subscribe. Any questions, feel free to email them across. If you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, jump on the Facebook group. Lots of free downloadables there, lots of free advice there, lots of just good content is going to help you out there. And if you'd like to hear something specific, we'd love to hear from you. Apart from that, guys, it's Friday afternoon. It's time for me to chill out. So I'm going to be heading off. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you real soon.